Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Meet the Team Wednesday. Hooray! I hope you're all really well and you've got some sunshine in lockdown today. So, my name is Tessa Bide, and I have a theatre company based in Bristol, UK, and we make work for families and young people. And normally we tour these shows all around the UK and abroad. But this summer, our gigs have been cancelled because of COVID, so we're going digital and we're doing a host of different things to keep you guys entertained and to keep us from going crazy as well. One of these offerings that we're doing is Meet the Team Wednesday. Because when we make shows, we quite often rehearse them in schools, and part of our residency in a school will be going around and telling the pupils what our jobs involve and what it takes to be an actor and what involves being a designer or a producer. What does a dramaturg do? Answering all these questions, and it's always a really popular part of our visit. So we thought that we would do these, make that online. So we'd do these public online interviews and would meet various members of the team so that you guys can get a little bit of insider knowledge into the whole team that it takes to make a show. Because it's not just those people who you see on stage. There's lots of really talented people on and off stage as well. Last week we had Steph de Worley, who is an actor based in London who's been in a few of our projects. And this week we have Luned Gwawr Evans. I've been practicing, who is a theatre designer based in Wales, bilingual. She speaks Welsh and English, and she's worked on a few of our projects. So I'm going to say hello, Luned. Hi,
Hello,
how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. It's really sunny here in Wales today.
Great. Oh, I'm so glad the tech is working. Do give us a wave or a hello on Facebook as well if you're watching. We've got a few people watching already. We're doing these interviews live so that you guys at home can ask questions whilst Luned is talking. So if anything that she says sparks something in you and you want to ask her a question, then type it in the comments. And at the end of Luned's chat, we're going to have a bit of a question and answer session for that. So Luned, I'm going to hand over to you. Thanks very much for being here. Tell us
Thanks
about
for
being a
having me.
designer.
Yeah, well, I'm Lynette and I'm a theatre designer. I'm from Cardiff originally, and I still live in Cardiff and work here as well. I grew up performing and competing from the age of 5 in the Arad Goch, which is one of the biggest cultural festivals in Wales, but also in Europe. And I grew up with singing and reciting, acting, all around me, and also being able to be an active member of that community and of that world. So as I got older, I realised that I got really nervous every time I went on stage, and it would just fill me with dread. Once I was on stage, I was okay, being with a lot of other people, but on my own, I couldn't do it. So I came to see that being in the limelight was not my forte. I realised that maybe I could do something else within theatre. So after doing my A levels, I decided that I would take some time out and do an art foundation. If you don't know what an art foundation is, it's basically a year course that's completely free for anyone that's just left school. And lots of places all over the UK do it as an opportunity really to come and understand what art forms you like doing and trying out things that you've never done before. And it's a chance to explore as well into techniques and just have a play as an artist for a whole year. I really enjoyed my art foundation. I learned so much. from artists and different like art techniques, and getting to know loads of friends as well, people that I'm still friends with now. And as a part of that foundation, you get to do a final exhibition of your kind of the work that you've been building towards. And in this picture, you should see that there's a room, a white room, with a screen, some pictures, and a little plinth with a lot of little ceramic things. So I'll explain to you what that is. So in my final major project, I decided to do a reflective project on an experience that I went through when I was 15 years old. So when I was 15, I became very ill and had to go to hospital for a long period of time to have chemotherapy. And I was in and out of hospital a lot during this whole year. And I decided that I wanted to make an art piece, or a few art pieces, to kind of showcase what I had been through and where I got to by that point in my life, as a part of kind of reflection and almost as a cathartic thing, kind of reassessing how I felt and kind of getting better from feeling emotions that I kind of was still a part of my life. And in those little ceramic things, there's ashes of all of the paperwork that was made during my time at hospital. And up close you can see lots of little details from drugs I was on, or my hospital number, you know, lots of little information bits that was integral to my day-to-day life then. And I had the opportunity of burning it and using it and creating clay. So every single one of these little sculptures was different. They were little open boxes, kind of as me kind of stepping forward from that time in my life and saying, okay, well, that was, you know, 5 years ago, and now I'm going forward to the rest of my life.
Rising from the ashes.
Rising from the ashes, exactly. And I really enjoyed that experience, but knew that maybe art in itself wasn't what I wanted to do right then. So I was really interested in theatre design, you know, from a young age, going to theatre and kind of enjoying the visual elements. And some shows are still in my memory from shows I saw at a very young age. So I started to build my portfolio from the foundation then to go and apply for university places. So I applied to universities and to drama colleges. I think I applied to about 5 or 6 different ones all over the country. And I was also offered places in almost all of those universities, which didn't make my decision easier to move forward, really, because I was like, it's fine, I'll just go to the place that offers me a place. But so then I really had to, it was great. It really boosted my confidence, but also sent me into a spiral of really not knowing what to do. So I then revisited all those universities, and I think it's really important, if you're thinking of going to universities, to really to explore not just the course, but get to know some people as well that are doing the course, and ask them questions, and really delve deep into what that place is, what they're teaching, who the people are. And I came to gather that Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama was the most homely place. Everyone that went there said they had an incredible experience, and that it was a real close vibe, and that you got to learn as well so many skills that catapulted you into the industry. Because I knew that there were a lot of courses that did bits, so you did just model boxing and designing, where you weren't allowed to focus on any of the making skills. And I'm a real hands-on kind of artist, so to me it was really important that I kept both of those things going, because I didn't really know in what direction I wanted to go in. So in the first year of college, we get to learn the foundations of set and costume design, as well as some making skills and understanding what the world of theatre is, in lots of different projects. In the final months of the first year, everyone in the first year of the theatre design course does the puppetry project. The show will be performed as an outdoor promenade performance on a side of a mountain in Wales.
Of course.
And as well as having to design, make all of the puppets and set pieces, we were the ones performing as well. So we had to learn all the scripts, all the songs, and know exactly where everything was on the site that we were performing.
Wow, baptism of fire.
Baptism of fire into puppet mayhem. And yeah, it was incredible. So we all had our little projects as groups, and I was fortunate enough to have a puppet almost to myself to make, and I made this Lyon Puppet. This design was based on kind of a Lion King format, where you have a puppeteer on the inside and then another puppeteer on the head. So I was puppeteering the head, as you can see in the photo, and there's another puppeteer inside on crutches, kind of working the legs of the lion. And yeah, so these performances, we always had to be in lots of different locations, using other people's puppets as well as the ones that we'd made. And it was a massive challenge, having to rehearse in this location in Caerphilly and then drive the whole way back to Cardiff every day. But it was where we were all in it together, and it made it such an amazing experience, and like we all became so close. Yeah, needless to say that the weather wasn't always great, as it was in this photo. We were rained out a few times, but we had to. There was one particular time where the heavens opened in the last half an hour of the show, and we spent the next few hours hair drying the puppets to try and dry them out for the next show, because we had 2 shows a week, 2 shows a day for a whole week, or maybe even 2 weeks. So it's a full run, but it was great, and we had such a laugh from all of it. So year 2 was a challenge in a different way, because we were put on shows as assistants, as well as doing other projects that made all the skills that we'd learnt in first year even better. So we were developing our skills throughout the year. So we did a lot of design, like conceptual design projects, as well as being on real shows. So we were having to be scenic artists, prop makers, set dressers, designers, costume makers, kind of everything really, which really kind of gave us the tools to understand what was out there for us to do. So then at the end of year 2, we were asked if we wanted to take part in puppetry again. So I became a puppetry team leader on this project, and it was called Just Add Water. And this show wasn't only performed in Cardiff at Royal Welsh, we took it to Prague. So if you don't know, there's every 4 years, there's a Prague quadrennial specifically for theatre design. And we were allowed to take part in this big festival and perform sections of our show. So we lugged all our puppets in the bus, All the puppets went in the luggage compartment underneath the seats, and we travelled for 25 hours to get to Prague, and then had to go straight into rehearsals the day we arrived. So it was pretty intense. And I think we performed maybe a day or two later, but also got the opportunity to actually see the festival itself, and to engage with theatre design from all over the world. Which was an amazing experience that I wouldn't have got to do otherwise. And in this show, I was in charge of making Queen Victoria and her bathing machine. So in the picture, you can see this big kind of wooden bathing machine, which we constructed and I designed with the team. And then we had a little crown on top of the bathing machine that was spinning and would spray water all over the audience at a specific point in the performance, as Queen Victoria would come and greet them all. And as you can see, I'm in this picture as well as a footman. So I was allowed to not only be a part of the performance, but I actually made this whole costume.
Wow, so you look amazing.
I made the pattern from scratch. I dyed all the fabric, sewed it all up with a lot of help from one of our costume tutors. Again, doing things, that I'd never done before, but it all works out in the end, as theatre does.
Is Queen Victoria using you as a walking stick?
Yes. So there was no banister. And the performer couldn't really see what she was doing. And I had to kind of hold this 100-year-old umbrella up for her while she was being sprayed by water. That was a lot of fun. So I guess on to the third year of college. In third year at college, you're much more free to do whatever you want. So you get a chance to do a lot of specialist projects. I decided to make a film about a Welsh poet, and I had the script from someone else that had written it, but I had constructed it all, edited it all to make a 20-minute short film. So I designed it, I sourced everything, the costumes, props, employed the actors, directed, shot, etc., the whole film. And it was great. That was also a baptism of fire of understanding Final Cut and lots of kind of programs I'd never used before. But it was fun. And then it also made a puppet, an old man puppet, that Tessa got to meet when we first met, which was another challenge because I'd never made a human puppet on my own before, carved entirely of wood. So that was fun. And then I guess the other thing that we get to do is design our own show. So in the photos that you'll see, I designed a show called Madness in Valencia with a director called Adele Thomas. And the show was a bit nuts. There's a lot of characters in it. And I designed a set where the audience was a part of the stage. So it was in a U shape, which is called a thrust. And the performers would use every entrance in this small studio space to kind of really bring the audience into the world that we'd created. So we transformed this whole room and made up the walls to look like exterior walls. So nothing that we'd created was there in real life. We'd even put, so in one of the corners, you'll see a pillar, and we even put in little handles that one of the actors climbed up during the show and climbed up and then used the grids as monkey bars, which is something I'd never envisaged when I was designing it. And there was lots of different things, and we used one of the back room that's normally used as a kind of a sound operating room. We used that as a medical room, so you'd see actors disappear and lights go crazy, thinking, you know, they were getting operations and that kind of thing. And yeah, so it was a really fun experience, and from that initial project I knew that this is what I want to do. And just felt completely at ease doing it, and really engaged with collaborating and working with other creatives to create a performance that an audience can enjoy and hopefully remember for a very long time. So yeah, and at the end of the performance, the audience gets invited to this long dinner table, which is the wedding scene at the end of the show, where all the actors break out into song and dance. So it was a real fun project to kind of be a part of. So I guess then I graduated from Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, and I went straight into designing a show. Before I'd actually even graduated, I started designing it. While that exhibition was going on, I was also designing my first show, which was Treith Gan with Theatr Na Cymru, which is the Welsh Language National Theatre of Wales.
Wow.
And first show.
First gig.
First gig working with the National Theatre of Wales. I was kind of gobsmacked. And nervous, but also excited by the show, because it was really interesting, kind of tying in Welsh music that was going to be performed live on stage every night, tied into this theme of kind of ancient, kind of Asian history of kind of this old kind of poets that lived over 1,000 years ago, being tied into a story about a daughter that had actually died, but we saw her as a father's conscience almost throughout the play, and you don't realise she's actually passed away until later on in the story. And it was a great experience, and I had to design the set almost as though kind of like in Edinburgh, where you get a set in and a set out really quickly in, 20 minutes, half an hour, because the theatre that it was played in was a tiny version of the Red Shed, if you've heard of what that is. It's like a wooden panelled kind of studio space that's very small, but there's a lot of different shows going on every day, so I had to really make it fit the space, and being able to fit 4 actors and a musical performer with all of his different instruments. And it was just a great kind of way to start my career, I guess.
And how did you get that opportunity? Like, did you apply for it, or did they see your final show, or how did that come about?
I'd met the artistic director from, I was working on my dissertation and had arranged to interview him. My final thesis was about the use of bilingual languages within theatre, and the effects on Welsh theatre, I guess. So it was a big beast.
You translating it as you go? You're like, what's that in English?
yeah. So I actually wrote it in Welsh, with some degree of people not understanding why I did that, but it fitted the thesis so well, because I was saying, well, I'm saying, you know, theatre in Wales could potentially be bilingual in the future, in these kind of ways, and this is what theatre is doing now and what's great about it, but what the potential downfalls are as well, that I could see a lot of companies were doing this at the time. So I took the chance to interview as many directors and I guess actors and all kinds of people that were working within bilingual theatre, and any theatre in Wales. And that's how I met Arad Griffith. And he said at the end of that interview, oh, well, we'd love to work with you in the future. And in my head, I was like, great, 5 years time, you know, I'll start working with them and start on the road. But no, straight in. Before I graduated, I got a lovely email from the director asking if I just wanted a chat. And yeah, so that's kind of how it started, really. And yeah, so I was then like that was the beginning of a long standing relationship that I still currently have with Theatr Again. And I've done many shows with them since. I've worked on almost every show in some form since I graduated. There are a few that I didn't work on, but you know, I was busy doing other things. And sometimes it's good to mix it up a little bit. So I guess on to the next show, which is Just Jump. This was a show with a company called Theatr Na, a company that have done a lot of shows with schools, specifically in kind of in the Neath area in Wales, which is about an hour and a half from Cardiff, and in Swansea as well, so kind of out of Cardiff, but presenting theatre to lots of schools, sometimes in Cardiff, but sometimes in the valleys and stuff as well. And Just Jump was a show specifically for kids in primary school, to try and highlight the dangers of jumping into dangerous waters. And this set had to travel to 10s, 20s, lots and lots and lots of different schools, and it's gone out 2 times. It was supposed to go out on its 3rd round this year, but hasn't been able to go because of COVID-19. And when I first designed this set, it was very much, okay, you have 4 meters squared to play with. And I really wanted to create something that kids could really engage with, and kind of looked at Cardiff Bay as an inspiration, and drew things from that location that I'm so, you know, I know Cardiff Bay like the back of my hand, and how to create that in a small set. The other kids, the kids from, you know, from the age of about 9 to 11 could really engage with. And one of the hitches that we came across was the blue and yellow structure that I'd created didn't even fit into the rehearsal space. It went through the roof. So they'd given me my 4x4, you know, meter square, but they didn't give me a height, so I went crazy. So that's a lesson in understanding, you know, what are the whole parameters. But we didn't have a problem since, you know, we got it slightly edited, and we changed the set as well as years went on, and it came back out of storage, and using the different bits that we had in more exciting ways for the performers and audiences to enjoy. And so I guess the next show is Perfect, which was my first show collaborating with Tessa. And it was lovely. It was a lovely show. I came on from the R&D, which is research and development. I'd never been in an R&D before, and hadn't really done any devising or creating a piece of theatre out of nothing. I've only worked from scripts from to design from up until that point. So it was a real different way of working, but I really enjoyed kind of being a part of what was being created and using a book as inspiration. And from those first 2 weeks, I really understood what the book was about and what is so special about it. And I really wanted to create that in the set that I'd made. So you can see in the pictures that I have various different elements of the set. So we knew that we wanted to project and use animation that we were creating. So that was an important piece that had to be put in the set. So we created this cyclorama that was a white, backdrop for the images to be projected onto, and then had these little platforms that the actors, which was Tessa and Alina, could use as different levels and to represent different things. So tables, or sometimes they would use it.
She went kind of climbing in the woods, didn't she? And she kind of jumped over them like they were kind of trees and boulders and things. And
yeah, exactly. So having something that's really simple but effective in different ways of the whole show, and puppets as well. I made all the puppets that were on the show, and kind of engaging with the performers and the dramaturg all the time, collaborating on this show, which was great. I really loved it. It's still one of my favourite shows to date, definitely. I guess then moving on to Penblwydd Poenus Pete, which was my first show with Theatr Na, which is a company based in Cardiff, and my first show working with Sean Pritchard. He has been acting for many, many years, and decided to start directing. And from the word go, we really got on. We'd worked together on one of my previous shows, one I designed that he acted in. And we just understood each other. And I think that relationship between a designer and director is so important, that almost what the other person's going to say, but still kind of challenging each other and asking questions, and kind of finding where the design and where our ideas can go, as well as kind of understanding that things change all the time as well. So when a show goes into rehearsals, things can drastically change, but there are certain decisions you've made, for instance with the set, or etc., that you've had to decide before, but how you work around those challenges and problem solve all the time. My favourite character in this show was the cat. So you can see her in the picture. We'd dressed her up in this suit and gave her a little bow tie, and she just embodied this character with her braces and her it was really fun to design this show.
Oh, is she one of the characters on stage?
Yes,
is she wearing cords?
Yes, in the cords. Yeah. Cords and braces. So she had to do a lot of very physical performing as well, and I can't remember how many times she ripped those trousers. But I had to have a second pair as a backup, just in case the worst happened. So that was really fun. And the next show I would like to talk about is the Kists mobile library. So as you might know, this is one of the shows that was supposed to go out again this year, but has had to be postponed. So when Tessa came to me with this idea, I had no idea what it was going to be. And I think when we sat in that caravan for the first time with all the white walls, I couldn't really see much. I just thought, it's a caravan. I don't know. So it took a long time, I think, to really understand what each world would be and how the characters would be able to present and really engage the kids to create their own little stories. And I really enjoyed seeing how much it's developed from those initial meetings that we had, and it's had a lot of stages of development, and it's still changing. I guess that's what's completely different with this show, is that it's still evolving, and every time other more audience members come to see it, we see different elements of it coming to life, and kids, I guess, take something different every time, which is amazing, because every child is going to remember little details that somebody else is going to see differently. So that's Tamil. And then I guess on to Pryd Mae'r Haf, which is my latest production with Theatr Na. So this was working with Sean Pritchard for the second time. So I haven't worked with many directors more than once, and I really felt that this was this really like sealed our relationship and how well we get on. And this show really challenged me, because the set, as you can see, it's a big wooden kind of structure that needed to fit into a tiny pub theatre that was only about 5 meters by 2 meters deep, and then had to be transferred into a big church building that had been transformed into a theatre. The completely opposite venues, but with one set. We were able to close that big venue down slightly, but you could still see that it had vast ceilings, and the sound was very different as well. And the audience were much further back on pews. So it's, that's the amazing thing about touring theatre, is that you go to all kinds of venues, and you have to think about how it's going to fit in and what it's going to look like, even in the early days of designing. And you really want to show those details in the small venues as well as the big ones. This challenged me to really think of something that works in every different venue. And it was supposed to go on tour, a national tour of Wales in April, but of course that has been cancelled. So I hope that the audiences of Wales will be able to see it at some point in the future. And then on to my last bit of talkiness. I do quite a lot of assisting as well as designing. And this first show is called Now the Hero. And it was a real kind of insight for me to understand what epic theatre is, and how to create it. So this was designed by Bide James Jones, the first time that I'd worked with her, and we got on so well. And it was an immersive promenade show that started on a beach in Swansea, and then paraded through this tiny street with 30 meters of bunting that we had to put up and make, and then onto the main building, where we had lots of different rooms, but the main event was this room that was covered with 7 tons of red clothing. And yeah,
Wow.
I was having to do that. When we were creating the set, we had to place all of this clothing onto different bits of foam. And then in the back of the hall, there's a massive structure of chairs that I had built using just cable ties and a simple kind of metal structure. So again, being really hands-on, working with another designer as well as other creatives and artistic directors, and that I love that show. It was amazing to see the hundreds of people coming through the doors and being able to just be a part of this, be a part of the performance. And then the next show that I'd like to talk about is Oliver. So Oliver was designed by Hayley Grindle. So the set that you'll see, I didn't design it, but I assisted her on it. It was with the Lyric and Nuffield Theatres, I think, as well. And it was a real good, it was amazing actually, because it was the first time I'd worked with a designer for 3 months solid. I'd go in for 2 or 3 days every week and work on 2 shows. So I was working on Oliver, and I was also working on Romeo and Julia, which was a National Theatre show that was also is supposed to be going on tour later on in the year. And these are massive theatre companies, and I was in charge of making models. So in this image, I've made pretty much everything that you see, as well as doing all of the technical drawings and collaborating with another designer, creating her vision in different elements and kind of working on how it works and how I present it in a way that the carpenters will be able to build. And yeah, it was amazing just to be in somebody else's studio, being able to kind of soak up all of her knowledge. And I work with another designer as well, Rachel Canning, a lot. And I was able to go to Regents Park Theatre last year and work with her on her set. So I did all the design drawings for that and lots of model, and then went to the theatre itself to watch and help in different ways with their tech week. And I just feel like getting to know other theatre designers that are so much more experienced than me is so enriching. And I just love it, because I feel like I don't know very much, although I've been doing it for like 3 or 4 years now. I just want to keep learning and keep challenging myself.
Lena,
and I guess
sorry to interrupt, this model box that we're looking at now, can you give us a sense of the scale and how you make something that tiny and so detailed, just whilst we're looking at the picture?
Okay, so you'll see there's a big frame here that's about 3.5 meters high by about 5 meters wide, something like that. And so at the bottom, you can see a grid. So this is a metal frame that are gates that open up completely by the performers that are used in various times in the show. And I guess the frame structure needs to be lots of different places. So it needs to be, Fagin's hideaway where all the kids live, and it needs to be alleyways and different in pubs and lots of different locations. And in the centre here, you see a window that is actually projected onto. And the whole idea of this show is that it's for people with different abilities. So projected onto this gauze or this kind of screen will be words that are highlighted throughout the performance, so that people that are hard of hearing or seeing can engage in different ways. And it's black and white for a specific reason, so that it's very contrasting, so that you can see all the lines very specifically.
And are we looking at the actual set, or are we looking at a model box here? Because
that's the model that I made.
And it's 1 to 25, isn't it?
So 1 to 25. So it's probably about this big by this tall.
So it's 25 times smaller than what it would look like on stage.
Exactly. And there's a little wheelchair here that you can see in the front. That I painstakingly made. No, it was a fun project. I changed a wooden chair into a wheelchair, and we had all these little coffins that the actors would use in various ways to sit on, to wheel people on throughout the performance. And you can see there's lots of different kind of stairwells as well that the actors can use different entrances and exits on ladders or stairs, or in whatever way they need to come on. And a lot of the performers as well were actually with lots of different abilities. So you had some like disabled cast members, some that were partially sighted. So lots and lots of different things needed to happen on this set. For the actors to be able to use it and engage with it as well, and the audiences, of course.
We've got some questions starting to come in, but we've got one more slide, one more photo. Is that right?
Slide, which is quick. It's a quick one. So this is for Cilch Sialc, or Caucasian Chalk Circle. So this is another show that I assisted on with Ruth Hall designing, and I created all of the puppets on this show. There were 3 different puppets. One was a baby that was, a few weeks old. Another one was a toddler, a baby toddler, and then another one that was a 2-year-old. And this was a project where I worked with Rachel Canning, so a designer I've worked with a lot as an assistant. She was the puppet director and I was the puppet maker. So a different role completely to everything else I've done exclusively before. And I learned so much. Again, from working with an experienced designer, making it myself and understanding what was needed for it to be used day in, day out for a whole tour, and for it to look like a child. I never kind of done anything quite like this before. Also working with a designer, Ruth, I have worked with a lot, but not on anything kind of to this scale, I guess, where I was working with her directly all the time and being there throughout the technical rehearsals up to opening. And I, again, with Theatr Na Leithol, so I knew them and I knew a lot of the company. So I feel like I'm really starting to understand now how my role as a design assistant and a designer is constantly kind of changing and learning from each experience that I get. And hopefully, after all of this lockdown is over, we'll be able to go back to theatres. So yeah, I think I've got a lot done in 4 years. And if you want to see more of my work, go to my website. Is my name. So yeah.
Great. Hooray. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I've learned so much. Right. I'm going to go over to our audience now. If any of that sparked some questions in your minds, then do send them over in the comments and we'll try and get through them all. So far we've got one over here. So what's your design process and what do you do after getting a script? Thank you, Keris, for that.
So when I have a script, I firstly read it without any kind of idea of what it is or what it could be. I just want to read the script as it is. Then after that, you need to start delving deep into the text and start breaking it down and seeing, okay, what do I need? What does the script say I have to have? And then working with locations, maybe where it needs to be, and start working out what the story is and how design can create, enhance that story and help with the storytelling. Sometimes it's not that I'm recreating exactly what it is. Most of the time, that's not what it is, but it's kind of taking what they have to be and changing it to something that's adaptable and usable by the performers. And I guess after that, then it's a conversation with the director and starting to build images through little kind of mood boards, which is essentially a collage of lots of images that you collect and see love a mood board, see a lot of colours and what you kind of want to engage with and want to create with your set. I tend to start with a set before costume, and then once you get that dialogue going between you and a director, that's where all the ideas start sparking, and having that conversation all of the time with how your ideas are developing and growing and to what it eventually will be. And I guess then it's with the costumes, it's a lot of the same thing, creating mood boards, seeing what the director likes, what I like, and what the characters are, what they need, and how to kind of heighten different elements of who they are in their costume. So yeah, that's kind of my process, as well as, so after that point you make a model box and then make drawings and do lots of presentations with the company and show what your vision is as creative, so as a designer and as a director. And then the director goes and talks to the other creatives that are on board, so a lighting designer, a sound designer, composer, and eventually the actors. And you have to do another presentation to the actors and say, okay, this is the idea, this is the set, and this is how we got to this point, and what the ideas were, and what's integral for them to know to really get to grips with what the story is and what we're trying to create.
How do they feel about going on monkey bars, that kind of thing?
Please don't die. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And I guess slightly different process in a devising process, as you said earlier, starting without a script. All those conversations are kind of happening in the room as the company are collaborating on a piece, aren't they? They're all devising it together.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Cool, we've got another one in here from Ridian. You could probably say that better than me. How often have you had to go right back to the drawing board after building something and seeing it in use? Not many times, almost never. It's only happened to me once, really, that we've had to really, after a set's been built, that we've had to edit it to make it work. So I'd built, I designed a show and it was built. And it was these really big metal structures that had two sides to them. One of them had all these metal slats that were shelves for all of the props and costume to live on, and there was two of them, and they were on really big wheels, so they were turned and used in different ways to show different locations. And on the back there was a projection
it was perspex, which is a form of plastic that you can project onto, and so when the set got to the venue up in North Wales, we came to realise that it actually didn't work because it was too heavy on one side. So then we had to go back to the drawing board, and we had to phone around lots of set companies up in North Wales and get them to build us a bit to kind of add on to the structure to make it balance. And
because there's like physics involved, isn't there? There's a level of engineering that goes with being a theatre designer.
And I feel like there was an element there that was missing, that there was a conversation that hadn't been had, and something had fallen through the net that we hadn't realised. But I guess that's what's amazing about theatre, is there's always a way of adapting and having to change things. When something doesn't work, we have to fix it in whatever means possible, really. And it worked in the end, with a lot of practice and some mistakes happening here and there. But, it did what it had to do, even though in my mind, the design had changed almost too much and I hated it. But then, I'm a perfectionist, so there's nothing much I can do about it.
That's always going to happen when you're creating something that's never existed before. That's what you're doing. You can't kind of say, okay, and then I'll just buy that, mock up of that wall of the pub from this shop. Like everything you're creating for the first time. I remember in the Anarchist Mobile Library, there's just a few things like the sign on top of the caravan that we just couldn't figure out how to engineer it. And it just became the most complicated thing because we were creating something that has never existed before. And caravans, a 1970s Rapido folding caravan does not normally need a windproof sign at the top, does it? So
no.
all that problem solving, it's because you're working in this creative way. And that's what works really well working with Georgie, who's coming on in a few weeks. Georgie is the set builder that we use, and you've worked really closely with her before, haven't you? With Perfect and the Anarchist Mobile Library. So in Perfect, we knew that we needed that cyc, the semicircular cyc, but Georgie was the one who could kind of go, okay, well, we need it to be this deep for it to be self-standing. And that was really nice for me to see as a producer, you two just like working the creative vision with the practicalities of it really nicely.
And that's the dream, really, that you have somebody that you can trust as well. Because for a designer to let go and be like, okay, it's now in your hands, is actually really hard. But knowing that other person is going to fulfill everything that you've envisaged is really important. And I think that you have to do it. I can't build everything as well as everything else that I'm doing, and it's that sense of that it's always developing, and things will crop up that you need to problem solve and kind of work on, and it's never a finished product until it opens on stage, opening night. And that's the point really where I'm like, okay, it's done, and that's kind of the end point, and I can just enjoy it for what it is. Up until that point, I'm like, oh, something's not right, and keep on thinking of what can be changed and what could be made better. But that's the beauty of theatre, I guess.
I've got a question here from Mark, and it's kind of goes in with a question that I was thinking. When we had Steph's interview last week, she talked about being this kind of jack of all trades, and a lecturer at uni once saying to her, just pick one thing and be really good at it. Don't try and spread yourself too thinly between all these skills. And when she said that in her speech, I was like, oh, that's never been my approach. My approach has been to kind of, pick up all these little things, and then in a show I could go, yeah, I can play the ukulele. Oh yeah, I can tap dance. Sure, I can puppeteer. And Mark has asked, what skills must you have to get into a theatre design course? You've mentioned making costume, drawing, designing, prop making, puppet making, using cameras, software. So there's a huge breadth of skills there. What do you need, and what happens if you don't have those skills?
I think when I was applying, I didn't have any of the skills, well, not many of the skills that I had, that I have now. So the only thing that I really had was passion, that I loved theatre and I really wanted to be a part of this course. And I guess what I showed when I had my portfolio was that eagerness to learn, to be able to experiment, to play, problem solve, drawing to a certain degree, but drawing takes a lot of different forms. It doesn't have to be traditional. It could be, doing things on a computer, or making collages, or it doesn't have to be one specific thing. And when I was listening last week, a tutor in my university said exactly the same thing.
Oh,
Don't
really?
be jack of all trades. But at the end of the day, they're creating jack of all trades because they're teaching us everything.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about your course. It was
Yeah,
very
yeah.
well-rounded. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think in third year they try and push you to do what you want, but at the end of the day, I am doing jobs that require me to do all kinds of things, whether it's thinking about props or making puppets, or how a costume looks and how we can tweak it to be made, or eventually, hopefully, I can even be, designing things that are made by other people, not just costumes, but sets that are really big, with really big theatre companies. And I think that knowing all that, having that knowledge, is so important. But I didn't know any of it really when I first got to college. They gave me those skills, and they taught me those skills that I now use on a day-to-day basis.
And like you said, working assisting other designers, you're constantly picking up skills there, aren't you? And the more you're working, the more you can pick up. But there's also, I quite often get designers or makers kind of write to me and say, I'm really experienced in costume, but I've never done anything in puppetry. Could I maybe assist, during your processes? And I'll have assistants come and sit in rehearsal processes. And you had Marta, didn't you, on Perfect during the R&D? So that's also a really good way of learning. Even if you're not employed as an assistant, you can always just write to companies and go, wow, I really loved that last show that they did. Maybe I could sit in their rehearsal room and kind of see how their designer works.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's that thing of don't be afraid of asking the question. I did a lot of that while I was at uni. I emailed designers and makers and asked, can I have a chat with you? Can I have a coffee? Or just sent them a load of questions that I had, or issues that I was having with a certain project that I was doing. And I think designers are really happy to have you on board to help out, or to ask questions. Like throughout college, we got to have different kind of work experience or placements as well. And especially in third year, they really encourage it, because where is better to learn about theatre than in the theatre with the designer, and just get stuck in and have a laugh. And I did a lot of National Youth Theatre Great Britain before I went to college, and during my years at college, every summer I'd go back and help paint shows, or lead different groups in how to build different elements of set. Not that I was extremely knowledgeable, but I had slightly a bit more of an insight into how it was done, and then learning from the people that were in charge of me. So yeah, I guess it's just that eagerness of wanting to actually take part is really really important, I think, as well.
I think that's a really lovely note to finish on. I've been trying to keep these to about an hour, so that fits in nicely now. A big
Nice.
thank you to our lovely audience for sending in those questions. Thank you so much for watching. And Luned, a round of applause for you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that.
Good.
And yeah, those photos were excellent. And yeah, I'm excited to continue working with you and seeing your process kind of change and develop as the shows go on.
Yeah, me too.
Great. So I'll say goodbye and then I'll just tell you guys at home a little bit about what else we're doing at the moment. So this month, we made this schedule that you can see here. Ding ding ding. We started the month with nightly book readings of the Tap Dancing Mermaid, which is a children's book that I self-published a few years ago. And you can see those videos all on this Facebook page, but I'm also going to edit them all into one big chunk and put it on YouTube for you. Then every Wednesday we're doing these interviews. So every Wednesday at 3 p.m, do tune in for these. And then on every other Friday we're releasing workshops as well. So the first workshop we released last Friday, and it was a puppet making workshop, and it's been super duper popular. So it's had lots of views already. So do have a look on there. It's for all ages. So if you're watching Lena talk about her puppet making and seen some of those puppets, then you know, if you've seen this, then do try out that workshop, and you can make your own at home. We were talking quite a lot about Perfect, the show, in this interview, and you can see Perfect is going online on Monday. So Monday the 25th, in collaboration with Omnibus Theatre, which supported the creation of it. We are releasing it online for free for you to stream at home. We've got a captioned version and a non-captioned version, and if you can donate anything, then to try and keep our company afloat for any of this content, then we would really, really appreciate it. Instead of doing a crowdfunder, we thought we would create this content for you guys online, and then if you've got anything to donate afterwards, then that would be hugely appreciated. So I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to put a slide up now that has the link to our Buy Me a Coffee page, where you can donate the price of 1, 2, 3 coffees, £3 each, just to say thank you for seeing this stuff if you've enjoyed it. If you're not able to, no pressure at all. It's really lovely to have you here, and hopefully we'll see you in a show in the future. So take care, and I'll see you guys next week for our Meet the Maker 3 p.m. Thank you very much. Bye.